Humanity had always dreamed of the stars. For centuries, Earth had looked up at the night sky, wondering what lay beyond. The day humans finally reached the stars was both thrilling and humbling. With their first successful interstellar ships, they had become a part of something much larger than themselves. But what awaited them was not what they expected. The first sign of extraterrestrial life came from a distant planet in the Andromeda system. This was no accidental discovery. Human explorers had spent years preparing for this moment, and when they made contact, they were hopeful. The planet was home to an advanced race of beings who called themselves the Zoreth. They had long ago mastered the art of technology, and their society was peaceful, controlled, and prosperous. When the humans approached the Zoreth with an offer of friendship, they were met with curiosity but also caution. The Zoreth had seen many species rise and fall throughout the ages, and they were skeptical of the humans' true intentions. Despite the human advancements in technology and space travel, the Zoreth still saw them as young and untested in the grand scheme of the universe. The humans, however, did not back down. They had no desire for power or conquest. Their mission was simple: to explore, to learn, and to make connections with others in the vast expanse of space. They believed in the power of unity and mutual growth, hoping to join the Zoreth in their peaceful alliance with other advanced species in the galaxy. But when the humans extended their hand in peace, the Zoreth hesitated. They explained that their alliance was selective, choosing only those species they deemed ready for such a bond. The Zoreth had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations and were cautious about whom they allowed into their ranks. Humanity, with its short history of space exploration and its flawed yet determined society, was not what they had in mind. The humans were disappointed but not defeated. They understood the Zoreth's reluctance, but they were not ready to give up on their dream of a peaceful, united galaxy. So they left the Zoreth planet, promising to return one day, hoping that the Zoreth would reconsider. As the humans departed, they didn't just return home quietly. Instead, they began broadcasting a message across the stars, hoping to make contact with other civilizations. They weren't giving up. Humanity's belief in their mission burned stronger than ever. What followed next was a series of encounters, each one similar to the first. Humans made contact with alien species, offering friendship and cooperation. But each time, they were met with indifference or outright refusal. The more advanced species of the galaxy seemed to look down upon humanity, considering them too young, too raw, and not yet ready to join their ranks. These species had their own problems to deal with and felt no need to extend a hand to those still struggling with their own problems back home. Despite the repeated rejections, the humans did not give up. They had always believed in the power of kindness and cooperation, and they couldn't abandon those ideals now, just because a few alien species didn't see the value of their offer. Humanity's journey into the stars was not about immediate recognition. It was about learning, growing, and building connections. It was about offering help to those in need, regardless of the response. The humans had learned that the universe was filled with diverse beings, each with their own ways of thinking and understanding the world. But humanity still held on to their core belief that no matter how different, all civilizations deserved a chance to grow together. And so, even though every civilization they encountered had turned away, humanity remained steadfast. They would continue exploring, continue reaching out, and continue believing that one day they would find a place among the stars where they could share their ideals and where their message of peace and unity could be heard. As the years passed, humanity's exploration of the galaxy continued. They faced many obstacles, but their resolve never wavered. Despite the coldness of the civilizations they had encountered, humanity stayed focused on their mission to bring peace, healing, and hope to the galaxy. But the universe had other plans. A new threat began to spread across the galaxy, a mysterious disease unlike anything the humans had seen before. It wasn't just a sickness. It was a plague that ravaged entire planets, wiping out entire populations in a matter of months. This plague, known as the entropy plague, left behind nothing but ruin. Entire cities fell into decay, and the once thriving ecosystems turned to dust. It started in the far reaches of the galaxy in a system that was home to a once proud race known as the Vulcan. The Vulcan had built an empire spanning several planets, their civilization a marvel of advanced science and culture. But the entropy plague spread quickly among them. It was relentless, destroying their infrastructure, their homes, and their people. Within weeks, the Vulcan were on the brink of extinction. Other species were affected soon after. The Rithians, a species known for their peaceful ways, saw their lush green worlds become barren deserts. The Shiren, who had once been one of the greatest architects of space travel, saw their fleets reduced to scrap metal. The galaxy was falling apart, and there was no one to stop it. The Federation, a coalition of powerful civilizations that had once looked down upon humanity, was the first to respond. But their response was not what the galaxy needed. They offered nothing but cold calculations and logical solutions, focused only on their own self-preservation. They feared the spread of the plague and did not want to risk their own security. Their first priority was to isolate themselves from the suffering civilizations, building walls of separation, both physical and political. When the Vulcan and other species reached out for help, the Federation refused. They told the suffering races to fend for themselves. They would not risk the plague reaching their own planets. The Federation's members, once united by a common belief in their superiority, now turned inward. They cared only for their own survival, abandoning those who had once been their allies. But humanity could not turn their backs. They knew that if the entropy plague was not stopped, it would spread throughout the galaxy, destroying everything in its path. They couldn't stand by while countless lives were lost. Despite being smaller, less powerful, and far from the center of the galaxy's power, humanity felt a deep responsibility to help. So the humans made a bold decision. They would not wait for permission or approval from the Federation. They would act on their own. With their resources stretched thin, the humans mobilized every ship they had, every scientist, and every doctor. They didn't have the advanced technology that the Federation had, but they had something just as powerful: determination, compassion, and hope. They traveled to the worlds hit hardest by the plague. The Vulcan, weakened and desperate, were the first to receive humanity's help. The humans brought medical supplies, clean water, and food. They set up field hospitals where their doctors worked tirelessly to save as many lives as they could. They knew that they could not save everyone, but they would not stop trying. Even as entire cities collapsed around them, they worked without rest, offering their support wherever it was needed. The humans didn't just offer supplies. They offered hope. They shared their knowledge, teaching the Vulcan how to use simple technologies to begin rebuilding their cities. They helped the Rithians find ways to cultivate new crops in the barren deserts. They guided the Shiren in reassembling their broken fleets, showing them that their future was not defined by their losses, but by their resilience. Everywhere humanity went, they saw suffering, but they also saw courage. They saw entire civilizations, once on the verge of collapse, rise again. Humanity's actions inspired those around them. The suffering races began to unite, working together to rebuild their worlds. The entropy plague was a terrible force, but the humans' willingness to help gave others the strength to fight back. As word spread across the galaxy, other races took notice of humanity's efforts. Some were moved by their compassion, while others were puzzled by their determination. The Federation watched from the sidelines, uninterested in getting involved. They had made it clear that they would not help, but humanity didn't need their approval. They had made a choice, and they would not turn back. The galaxy was changing. Humanity had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they would never give up on their belief that every life mattered. They had become a symbol of hope, and though the Federation had turned their backs, humanity had found new allies. Those they had helped, those who had learned from them, and those who had seen the value in cooperation over isolation. But the fight was far from over. The entropy plague still threatened the galaxy, and many worlds remained in danger. Humanity knew that this was just the beginning. Their journey had only just begun, and they would continue to fight for those who needed them most. As humanity continued its mission to heal the galaxy, something remarkable began to happen. The worlds that had once been on the brink of destruction began to show signs of recovery. The Velkin, who had once faced certain extinction, were slowly rebuilding their cities thanks to the humans' help. The Rithians were finding new ways to cultivate their lands, turning barren deserts into fertile soil. The Shiren, their once mighty fleets now restored, began exploring the stars once more. The galaxy was starting to heal, and humanity had become its most unlikely savior. But the work wasn't over yet. Many other worlds were still suffering. The entropy plague had spread far beyond the borders of the Federation's reach, and new planets were falling to the disease every day. Some worlds had been abandoned entirely, left to rot in silence as the Federation refused to extend its help. But humanity couldn't ignore them. They couldn't leave anyone behind. One of the most desperate worlds was called Lherin, a planet at the edge of the galaxy, hidden in the shadows of distant nebulae. Lherin was home to the Cairo, a species that had never been part of any galactic alliance. The Cairo were a peaceful species, known for their deep connection with the natural world, but they had never developed advanced technology. Their cities were small, built from natural materials, and their ways of life were centered on harmony with nature. When the entropy plague arrived on Lherin, it was swift and brutal. The Cairo didn't have the resources or knowledge to fight it off. They needed help, but they had no way of contacting anyone beyond their planet. It was a human ship that first arrived on Lherin's orbit. The Cairo, unfamiliar with spacefaring travelers, were initially frightened. But the humans did not come with weapons or demands. They came with medicine, supplies, and the promise of friendship. They spoke to the Cairo leaders, explaining that they were there to help, not to conquer. The Cairo hesitated. They had never trusted outsiders, especially those with technology so different from their own. But the human sincerity was undeniable. The Cairo leaders reluctantly agreed to allow the humans to help, though they remained wary. The humans set up a base on Lherin, providing the Cairo with medical assistance and teaching them how to fight the plague using basic but effective methods. They showed them how to purify water, cultivate resistant crops, and build simple machines to improve their healthcare systems. The humans worked side by side with the Cairo, not as conquerors, but as allies. Slowly, the Cairo began to recover. The plague's grip on their planet loosened, and the Cairo's trust in humanity grew. But Lherin wasn't the only world in need of help. News of humanity's efforts spread across the galaxy. Other civilizations, both large and small, began to take notice. They saw the humans as the last hope, not just for their own survival, but for the survival of the galaxy as a whole. The Federation's cold and detached approach had done nothing but create divisions, but humanity's compassion and willingness to help were building something different, something uniting. More and more species reached out to humanity, asking for aid, guidance, and support. Some were skeptical at first, unsure of what to expect. They had heard rumors of humanity's growing influence, but they had never seen it firsthand. Yet when the humans arrived, they arrived with only one purpose: to help. They didn't offer domination or control. They didn't ask for resources or power. They simply offered what they had: knowledge, friendship, and the willingness to fight for the survival of all. The small and isolated civilizations that had been ignored by the Federation were the first to join humanity's cause. The Noran, a species with the ability to manipulate energy, had been devastated by the plague, but they lacked the technology to defend themselves. The humans taught them how to harness their own abilities more effectively, using their energy manipulation to neutralize the effects of the plague. The humans did not impose their will on the Noran. Instead, they worked together to discover solutions. The planet Joreth, once a peaceful world of artists and philosophers, had fallen into chaos after the plague wiped out its population. The humans brought order to the chaos, helping the survivors rebuild their cities and find their place once again in the galaxy. In doing so, they showed the Jorathians that the galaxy was not a cold and uncaring place, but a vast and beautiful expanse where connections could be made and new friendships could be forged. Each new world that humanity helped was a testament to their growing influence. It wasn't about power or control. It was about compassion and unity. Humanity became the heart of a new movement, one that stretched across the galaxy. The Federation, watching from the sidelines, couldn't ignore it forever. They had rejected humanity's offer of cooperation, but now, the very people they had once dismissed were uniting the galaxy in ways they had never imagined. Despite all the progress, there were still challenges ahead. The galaxy was vast, and not every species was as eager to accept help as the Cairo or the Noran. There would be conflicts, misunderstandings, and setbacks, but humanity had proven something important, that when the time came, they would never turn their backs on those in need. The underdogs of the galaxy were rising, and humanity was leading the charge, showing everyone that even the smallest spark of hope could ignite a revolution. As humanity continued to offer aid across the galaxy, their influence grew stronger. The races they had helped began to rally together, united by the shared experiences of suffering and recovery. The once isolated worlds, some of which had been abandoned by the Federation, now stood side by side with humanity. The belief in unity and cooperation was spreading, and for the first time in history, a truly diverse alliance began to form. But despite all their progress, the question remained: what was the source of the entropy plague? Where had it come from? Humanity's scientists had worked tirelessly to understand the disease, but their knowledge alone couldn't explain its strange and deadly nature. The Federation, however, had resources beyond humanity's reach. Their technology was far more advanced, and their records spanned centuries. If there was a solution, they would have found it long ago. But they remained silent, unwilling to share their findings. Humanity, however, was determined to find out the truth. One day, while exploring a long-forgotten research station in a distant part of the galaxy, a team of human explorers stumbled upon a discovery that would change everything. The station had been abandoned for thousands of years, its walls covered in dust and decay. It was in a remote system, hidden deep within a nebula, far from the prying eyes of the Federation. The explorers cautiously entered, their hearts racing with the possibility of uncovering something important. Inside the station, they found a library of ancient data, files that had been carefully preserved over the centuries. As they sifted through the information, they began to uncover something alarming. The entropy plague was not a natural disaster, as they had once believed. It was a weapon, engineered deliberately to destroy entire civilizations. And its creators were not an unknown enemy, but the very Federation that had refused to help the suffering worlds. The files revealed that a secret faction within the Federation had developed the plague as a way to control the galaxy. They had believed that by creating a force so powerful and devastating, they could force weaker civilizations to submit to the Federation's will. The goal was not to help the galaxy, but to maintain a strict hierarchy, with the Federation at the top. The plague was a tool of manipulation, designed to break down resistance and create fear. Humanity was shocked by the discovery. The Federation, the very entity they had once hoped to join, was responsible for the destruction that had claimed so many lives. It was clear now why the Federation had refused to help. Their leaders had been behind the plague all along. They had allowed countless civilizations to suffer, to die, all to maintain their own dominance. This revelation sent shockwaves through the human leadership. They realized that they had not just been fighting a disease, they had been fighting a deliberate act of cruelty. The Federation's actions had been driven by a cold, calculating desire for control, and now it was up to humanity to stop them. But the discovery also raised new questions. How had the Federation hidden this truth for so long? Why had no one else in the galaxy known? The humans knew that they couldn't keep this information to themselves. The galaxy needed to know the truth, but revealing it would come with consequences. The Federation was powerful, and if they learned that humanity had uncovered their secret, they would stop at nothing to silence them. Despite the risks, humanity decided that the truth must be exposed. They couldn't let the Federation continue their reign of fear and manipulation. It was time for the galaxy to know who was truly responsible for the suffering of so many. The humans, once dismissed as weak and naive, now stood as the only force willing to challenge the Federation's tyranny. They sent out a broadcast, one that would reach every corner of the galaxy. The message was clear. The Federation is responsible for the entropy plague. They are the creators of the disease that has ravaged countless worlds. We have the proof, and we will not stop until the galaxy knows the truth. At first, many were skeptical. Some refused to believe that the Federation, the governing body that had once held such power and prestige, could be capable of such an act. But as more and more evidence surfaced, doubt began to fade. The Federation's leaders, when confronted, could not deny the truth. They tried to silence the humans, but it was too late. The galaxy was already waking up. The Federation's carefully constructed image of power and control began to crumble. The truth had been exposed, and now, the galaxy was faced with a difficult choice. Would they continue to follow a corrupt and manipulative system, or would they stand with humanity and fight for a new way forward? Humanity had not only uncovered the truth behind the plague, but they had also sparked a movement, one that called for justice, unity, and the end of the Federation's rule. The galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy was in turmoil. Humanity's broadcast had spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of space. The truth about the Federation's involvement in the creation of the entropy plague was out in the open. At first, many had struggled to believe the accusations, but the evidence was irrefutable. People across countless worlds began to question the Federation's authority. The veil of secrecy had been ripped away, and now, the galaxy was left to face the consequences. For some, the truth was a call to action. The Federation's carefully crafted image of peace and stability was shattered, and many worlds that had once bowed to their power began to consider their options. For years, the Federation had ruled with an iron fist, manipulating weaker civilizations and suppressing dissent. But now, with the truth exposed, the people of the galaxy had a chance to break free. The first to stand up were the worlds that humanity had helped. The Velkin, the Cairo, the Norin, and the Shiren, all of them had seen what humanity had done. They had witnessed the compassion, the determination, and the willingness to fight for a better future. These worlds, once divided and scattered, now found common ground. They knew that they couldn't let the Federation continue to control their fates. They couldn't allow the Federation to destroy the fragile peace they had worked so hard to rebuild. Humanity became the spark that ignited a fire across the galaxy. The message was clear. Enough was enough. No longer would they stand by and let a powerful, corrupt faction decide the fate of billions. It was time to rise up. The first major rebellion started on the planet Altheon, a once neutral world that had long been under the Federation's influence. Altheon had always prided itself on its independence, but under the Federation's rule, it had become little more than a puppet state. The Federation's heavy-handed tactics had made life unbearable for many of Altheon's citizens, but when the truth about the entropy plague came to light, the people of Altheon saw an opportunity. Led by a group of fearless leaders, the people of Altheon began organizing protests and rallies. They called for the removal of the Federation's presence on their planet, demanding justice for those who had suffered under the plague. What started as peaceful demonstrations quickly grew into a full-scale uprising. The Federation, unable to silence the growing unrest, responded with force. But the people of Altheon were not afraid. They fought back, using the very tactics humanity had taught them: unity, determination, and resilience. The rebellion on Altheon spread to nearby worlds. One by one, The planets that had once been under the Federation's control began to rise up. They joined forces with humanity, working together to weaken the Federation's power. The rebellion was not just a military effort. It was a revolution of ideas. The message was simple. The Federation's rule had to end. A new era of cooperation and justice had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. But the Federation was not going to give up without a fight. In response to the growing uprising, the Federation's leaders mobilized their fleets. They sent warships to crush the resistance, hoping to restore order and remind the galaxy of their power. The Federation had always relied on fear and control, and they were determined to maintain their grip on the galaxy. Humanity, however, was not intimidated. The people who had once been dismissed as weak and unworthy were now leading the charge for freedom. They had seen the worst of what the galaxy had to offer, and they were not afraid to face it head-on. The Federation's warships were powerful, but they were not invincible. Humanity's allies, who had once been isolated and weak, now stood together as a force to be reckoned with. The first battle between the Federation and the growing rebellion took place in the vast expanse of the Strathos Nebula. It was a battle that would go down in history. The Federation's warships, sleek and heavily armed, entered the nebula with the goal of crushing the rebellion. But what they didn't expect was the strength of the alliance that humanity had formed. The ships of the Vulcan, the Cairo, the Noren, and the Sharon moved in unison, striking back with a force that stunned the Federation. The battle raged for hours, with both sides suffering heavy losses. But in the end, the Federation was forced to retreat. It was a victory, but a costly one. The rebellion was far from over. The Federation still controlled vast portions of the galaxy, and many worlds remained under their influence. But the tide had turned. The galaxy now knew that the Federation was not invincible. The truth had set the stage for the greatest battle the galaxy had ever seen, a battle not just for freedom, but for the future of the galaxy itself. Humanity had become more than just a spark. They had become the heart of the rebellion, the symbol of hope and resistance. And as the first victory was celebrated, the people of the galaxy knew that they were no longer alone. Together, they could overcome any challenge, defeat any enemy, and build a new future, one free from the Federation's tyranny. The rebellion had gained momentum, but the Federation was not ready to lose its grip on the galaxy without a fight. The galaxy's largest and most powerful military force, the Federation fleet, had been humiliated by the unexpected strength of the uprising. Now the leaders of the Federation were preparing for a counterattack, one that would attempt to crush the resistance once and for all. The leaders of the galaxy's new alliance, inspired by humanity's courage, were strategizing their next steps. The victories in the Strathos Nebula had proven that the Federation's military might was not unbeatable. The key was unity. Every species, from the Cairo to the Sharon, was now standing together. Humanity, once considered the underdog, had now become the leader of this great rebellion. But the Federation wasn't blind to their growing threat. They had learned from their previous losses. They knew that the rebellion's strength was not in numbers alone, but in its unity and its ability to fight with passion and purpose. To break the will of the galaxy's newly formed alliance, the Federation planned a devastating move. The Federation deployed its secret weapon, the Arc ship. A massive warship, the Arc ship was unlike any other vessel in the galaxy. It was equipped with the most advanced technology known to the Federation, and it could wipe out entire fleets with a single strike. It had been hidden in the deepest corners of the galaxy, away from prying eyes, for years. Now it was ready to be unleashed. The Arc ship was sent to the heart of the rebellion's stronghold, the planet Hadris, where a large portion of the Alliance's forces were stationed. Hadris was a world of breathtaking beauty, with vast oceans, lush forests, and towering mountains. It had become a symbol of hope for the rebels, the place where many species had gathered to form a new government. The Federation knew that destroying Hadris would be a crushing blow to the Alliance. It would send a message to the rebels that their struggle was hopeless. As the Arc ship arrived in Hadris's orbit, the skies darkened, and the ground trembled. Its weapons fired, sending shockwaves through the atmosphere. Cities were torn apart, and the rebellion's forces scrambled to defend the planet. The Ark ship's firepower was overwhelming. It was as if the Federation had thrown everything they had into one final destructive strike. But the Alliance, now stronger than ever, was not ready to give up. Humanity's leadership, the Cairo's resourcefulness, the Noran's energy manipulation, and the Sharon's advanced technology. Together, they formed a resistance that refused to bow down. The fight for Hadris had only just begun. The fleet of the Alliance, though smaller than the Federation's, was determined. Ships from all the worlds that had risen up against the Federation moved into position. The humans, leading the charge, communicated with their allies, sharing strategies and coordinating their attacks. They knew the battle would not be easy, but they also knew that this was their chance to turn the tide of the war. The first wave of rebel ships, led by humanity's finest commanders, engaged the Ark ship. It was a brutal battle, with the rebels fighting with everything they had. The Federation's warship was powerful, but it was also enormous, and its size made it vulnerable to the speed and agility of the rebel forces. The battle raged on for hours, with both sides suffering heavy losses. The Ark ship fired devastating beams, while the rebels countered with swift strikes and clever tactics. During the battle, the Cairo, using their deep connection with nature, managed to manipulate the atmosphere of the planet, sending powerful winds and storms to disrupt the Federation's targeting systems. The Noran, using their energy manipulation skills, created fields of energy that protected the rebel ships from the Ark ship's most powerful weapons. The Chiron, with their advanced technology, provided vital intelligence and support, coordinating the movements of the rebel fleet in real time. But it was humanity's leaders who proved to be the deciding factor. Using their sharp instincts and unyielding will, the human commanders found a weak spot in the Ark ship's defenses. It was a small, vulnerable point in the ship's massive structure, one that the Federation's engineers had overlooked in their arrogance. The humans devised a risky plan to attack this weak spot, a plan that could either destroy the Ark ship or doom the entire rebellion. With the clock ticking, the human fleet gathered for one final strike. They launched a coordinated attack, pouring everything they had into one last effort. It was a desperate move, but it was also their only chance. As the rebel ships fired their weapons at the Ark ship's weak spot, a massive explosion erupted in the sky. The Ark ship, the Federation's ultimate weapon, had been destroyed. The galaxy held its breath. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the cheers began. The rebels had won. The Ark ship, the symbol of the Federation's unchallenged power, was no more. It was a victory, but the war was far from over. The Federation still had vast armies and fleets at its disposal, and the road ahead would be long and difficult. But the destruction of the Ark ship was a turning point. It proved that the Federation was not invincible. The galaxy now had hope, and that hope was stronger than ever. Humanity had not just fought for its survival. They had fought for the freedom of every world in the galaxy, and as the rebellion celebrated its victory, they knew that the fight for the future had only just begun. The destruction of the Federation's Ark ship was a victory like no other. The massive warship, a symbol of the Federation's power and oppression, was now nothing more than debris scattered in the void of space. The rebels, who had once been scattered and fragmented, were now united in their cause. The galaxy had witnessed the strength of humanity and its allies, and the message was clear. The Federation's rule was crumbling. But even in the face of victory, the galaxy was not at peace. The Federation, humiliated by their loss, was preparing to make their final stand. Their leaders, backed into a corner, knew they couldn't afford to lose any more ground. They mobilized every remaining fleet, gathered every resource they could, and began to prepare for an all-out war. Humanity and its allies, however, had learned something crucial over the course of this long struggle. They were stronger together. It wasn't just about military strength or advanced technology. It was about unity, hope, and the belief that they could create a better future. The rebellion, once a desperate fight for survival, had become a fight for justice, freedom, and the chance to build a new galaxy, one where all species could thrive together. The leaders of the rebellion, including humanity's finest commanders, gathered on the planet Hadris. The world, still recovering from the earlier Federation bombardment, had become the center of the galaxy's new movement. The skies over Hadris were clear now, the winds calm, and the people were hopeful. Together, they had formed a new council, one that would represent the many worlds that had risen against the Federation. The alliance had become more than just a resistance. It had become a government, a beacon of hope for every corner of the galaxy. As the council gathered to discuss their next steps, they knew that the Federation would not go down without a fight. The battle to free the galaxy from their control was far from over. But they also knew that they had something the Federation could never understand: a united will. The Federation's leaders had ruled through fear and control, manipulating the galaxy with their superior technology and power. But humanity and its allies had fought not just for themselves, but for everyone who had suffered under the Federation's tyranny. And that was a force the Federation could not defeat. The final battle was set to take place in the heart of the galaxy, near the Federation's capital. The Federation, now desperate, had gathered its full might, hoping that this would be their chance to crush the rebellion once and for all. They had one last weapon, an ancient artifact of unimaginable power, hidden for centuries. This weapon, known as the Void Hammer, could obliterate entire fleets in seconds. It was a desperate measure, but the Federation had no other options. The leaders of the rebellion knew they had to stop the Void Hammer from being used, or else all their efforts would be in vain. The battle was going to be difficult, but they had no choice. If the Federation succeeded, the galaxy would be plunged into darkness, and all hope would be lost. The rebellion's fleet, led by humanity's ships, moved into position. They were joined by their allies, the Velkin, the Cairo, the Norin, and the Shiren, each species bringing their own strengths to the fight. Together, they formed a force unlike anything the Federation had ever faced. As the battle began, the rebels faced wave after wave of Federation warships, each more dangerous than the last. The Void Hammer was their target, and they had to get to it before it was activated. The Federation's forces were relentless, but the rebels fought back with everything they had. The Cairo used their control over nature to create powerful storms, throwing off the Federation's targeting systems. The Narin generated protective energy shields around the rebel ships, absorbing the enemy's fire. The Shiren's technology gave them the upper hand in intelligence and tactics, allowing the rebels to outmaneuver the Federation at every turn. In the chaos of battle, humanity's commanders led the charge toward the Void Hammer. The Federation's final weapon was located on a massive space station, heavily guarded by fleets of warships. But the human commanders, using their sharp instincts and tactical brilliance, devised a daring plan to infiltrate the station and disable the weapon. The final push was a race against time. As the rebels fought their way through the Federation's defenses, the Void Hammer began to charge. The moment it was fully powered, it would unleash devastation across the galaxy. Humanity's best pilots led the charge, breaking through the Federation's blockade and reaching the space station's core. Inside the station, humanity's soldiers fought their way to the control room. They disabled the Void Hammer's power systems just as the weapon was about to fire. With a final, decisive blow, they destroyed the weapon, sending a shockwave that shattered the Federation's last hope. The Federation's forces, now leaderless and broken, retreated. The rebellion had won. The galaxy was free. In the aftermath of the battle, the leaders of the galaxy's new alliance gathered once again on Hadris. They knew that their work was far from over, but they had achieved what many thought impossible. The Federation's reign of fear and control was over. The galaxy was now free to build a future based on unity, equality, and cooperation. And humanity, the species that had sparked the rebellion, would lead the way. The stars above Hadris seemed brighter now, as if the galaxy itself was celebrating the dawn of a new age. The people of the galaxy had learned a powerful lesson. Together, they could overcome any challenge. And as they looked to the future, they knew that anything was possible.